All right, we are live. Let's see who we have on the call. But before we start, I want to actually run our intro, which was done by our friend Manos. And let's see. Let's do that first. And let's watch.
Bet is 6 million.
Tesla shares are up by about 2% in the after-hours session.
On the table. Excuse me? You have to lay it on the table.
Amazon is now worth over $1 trillion.
If you could only invest in one company, which one would it be? Invest for Tomorrow with Kay, Disruptive Wealth Creation, Money, Whiskey and Coffee, and Nora the Stock Explorer invite you on Saturday, the 14th of August, in a discussion about this exact topic. We will be presenting our picks and our rationale. We would like you to be there and share your picks with us.
Well, that was a very exciting trailer for sure.
Thank you.
All right, so it's 11:59. We can get started now. What we'll do is for our audience who's going to watch this afterwards, guys, I will put a timestamp so you can watch the video at whatever time, whichever stocks you want to know. The topic for today is if you could own one stock, which stock would that be? And we have 4 guests. We'll go through the introductions in a brief moment, but the structure of this conversation is going to be we'll take 15 minutes for each stock. We will talk about the stock which we like, which we would like to own, and we will present our case basis on why we like that stock, and then we'll open it for discussion for other members and audience as well, so you can ask questions and you can post your comments in there. Hey, Rasa Stocks, thank you for joining. We'll be starting off with the introductions. And before we do that, guys, just a disclaimer. None of us are financial advisors. This is our personal journey. This is our personal thoughts. If you like the idea of the stocks, feel free to do your own due diligence. And when I say due diligence, which means that you should look at the company, understand the products and services. You should look at the balance sheet. And most importantly, you should look at, is this the right time to get into stocks, which means look at the price chart of it. Because if you'll buy Tesla at 850 and Tesla falls down to 600 for the next 5 months, you are at loss. So always do your own due diligence, but due diligence has many aspects to it. So, but before we start with that, why don't we start off with the introductions? Nora, why don't you go first?
Hi, everybody. So my name is Nora. My YouTube channel is The Stock Explorer. And I've been on YouTube for about a year now. And as you can see, I'm making some friends here in the financial space. I like to talk about innovative stocks. Also, I have a new account challenge, which has started in January, where I add $100 each week. And the stock that I picked to feature in this video is actually one of those stocks that's in the new account challenge. So I just want to say that. And thanks, everybody. Please come over, like and subscribe. Come over to the channel and check it out. I think you'll like it. I have a lot of cool, fun collaborations on there. And I look forward to more collaborations, one with each of you guys as well, in the future. That's something I look forward to doing.
Awesome. Thank you. Steve, you want to go start off with the next one?
Hi guys, my name's Steve and I'm from a channel called Disruptive Wealth Creation, which kind of speaks for itself really. So I'm very much interested in disruptive stocks and growth stocks. So the kind of stocks that float my boat are companies like Square, PayPal, Tesla, robotic companies, 3D printing companies, all kind of tech companies. But as well as that, I'm also very much interested in cryptocurrency, which I think is the future. And also, I just recently did one on the NFTs. So if you're interested in NFTs, check that out. And I also like to listen to guys like Michael Saylor, people like Chama Palahapitiya, because I think those are the guys of the future. I know there's some other guys who people often talk about, but I like to look at the new guys, the ones with new ideas. So that's me.
Awesome. Thank you, Steve. Manos, you're up.
Hi, I'm Manos. I'm from a channel called Money, Whiskey and Coffee. I have a background in engineering, so I'm looking at disruptive engineering companies mainly. And my main focus is what I would describe as enabler companies, companies that enable all those cool new tech that we're using in our everyday lives. I also cover some things about general personal finance, crypto as well. But yeah, my main focus is disruptive companies, same as Steve.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Manos. And everyone, my name is Kay. I am from Invest for Tomorrow. Since you're watching on live on my channel, I'm just an average retail investor who has been investing since I was maybe 22 years old. So it's been a while since I've been investing, and I have along my path, I have learned a lot of things. And I thought YouTube is a good way to showcase what I know, what I have learned so far. My channel mostly focuses on disruptive companies as well, but I also focus on a lot of growth companies and value companies. Generally, you would see, I do stock analysis. I do some of the ideas on how you can invest better for beginners. And so come over, check out my channel as well. And I will be putting the link to everyone's channel in the description. So don't forget to subscribe. And let's get this show rolling today. So we're going to start off with the first stock. And Nora, why don't you take the stage first and tell us about your stock?
All right, everybody. So the stock I chose for this video is CRISPR. CRISPR has so many interesting features, but I'm going to talk about just a few of them. What CRISPR does, basically, it's gene editing. Now, some people might call it gene vandalism. It's been called that because you are going into the genome and you are changing it. However, the therapy is changing it for the better, and it's actually being used to cure disease. Now, one unique thing about CRISPR that I wanted to talk about and not forget to talk about is it not only helps human beings, but CRISPR is used to edit the genes in crops that we grow to feed the world. Okay. So CRISPR has been used to improve crop yield, improve disease resistance, and things of that nature. So when you look at everything that's going on in the world, such as global warming and all the extreme weather events, all the droughts, all the wildfires, okay, you're going to have a company like CRISPR that's trying to improve those main crops, wheat, corn, soybeans, etc., that feed the world, but they're going to improve them so that they can withstand the drought, they can withstand the disease and things of that nature. But the thing I'm most excited about is that CRISPR changes the genome for humans. Okay, so we're moving into the future. Instead of taking medication, you will use something called gene therapy, which will actually cure disease at the very core. You won't need to take medicine anymore. It's actually cured at the very source of where the problem was. Now, CRISPR can't insert a new gene, but what it can do, it can alter an existing gene and maybe take out that defect so that it's working properly like it's supposed to. So I would like to feature the chart if you could help me with that,
Yes,
Kay.
absolutely.
So on the year, CRISPR is actually up 40% on the year. So if you had bought it in January, you would have made about 40% profit on CRISPR, which is awesome. If we could look at the yearly chart, what stands out to me in particular, if you go ahead and look at the chart, is that peak right there. It actually happened. What is the date on that?
It's January 14th.
Okay, it got all the way up to, I believe, $210 at that time. So while we look at the chart, not only has it increased 40% as of today, but you could see that it has the potential to go up to about $210. That means big money was investing in it. They were interested in it. They're watching it. So that's what piques my interest. Now, it is very volatile. As you could see, it's had its ups and downs this year. But I think we're going to have another good run of it. You see on the year, you almost have like that cup and handle formation on the year. That would be the handle right there. If it goes the way I think it will start heading back up towards, I would say, about 150 maybe by the end of the year, hopefully past that. But yeah, biotech sector, a lot of people maybe shy away from it because there's a lot of product development, there's a lot of research, and it maybe takes a long time for it to be profitable. But believe it or not, they are profitable. And I think what they're working on right now, which is most exciting, is they're working on curing certain cancers. So when you look at that, the possibility that this might be the way that we move forward to cure cancer, I think this is a winning stock pick for anybody's watch list. And anytime it is between 120 and 130, that's my personal buy zone of CRISPR, which it closed at 126.76 on Friday, which of course is in my buy zone, and I will be strongly considering it next week as my stock pick to add to the new account challenge to add another share of CRISPR. So yeah,
awesome.
what do you guys think about CRISPR, or maybe tell me what you might know about CRISPR?
Can I start by saying that is a really good stock pick, Nora? It's actually the second largest stock that I've got in my portfolio, so I really believe in this company.
Nice.
The only thing I would say about it is I unfortunately bought it at the peak in January when it went high. So I'm suffering a little bit, but I can handle that. Now, if you would have asked me about this company 20 years ago, I wouldn't have touched it with a barge pole. In the UK, we had a company called Monsanto, and what they were doing, well, they were sort of doing genetics with crops, and there was such an outrage and uproar about it, and they were basically driven out of the country. But I think people now are coming to terms with gene therapy, and the thing that I found most attractive about this company was that the cost of DNA sequencing has reduced. When they did the very first genome, it cost something crazy like $3 billion. And it took, about 13 years of computing power to actually generate this thing, Now it's gone down to less than $100, and it takes less than a day to do the DNA sequencing. So the costs of doing all these experiments and things, just remarkable, and it's done so quickly. The other thing is also Kathy Wood is a big fan, and ARK Invest. It's their, I mean, this company is the market leader. There are other companies, but CRISPR AG is the market leader. And as I say, Kathy Wood basically said that by 2025, because her researchers have looked into this, they've said that plants, animals, and crops will be disease resistant. And if that's true, that will be massive for the company. Wow. So that's my take on it, and so big thumbs up from me.
Awesome.
Thank you,
what are your
Steve.
thoughts?
I honestly think that this is a good pick. I do think that gene therapy is the future in terms of how we treat diseases in humans, and especially genetic diseases that are passed on by our parents without them knowing to us. So yeah, that is I think that's where we are going as a species in the future. When it comes to crops, obviously a lot of people will still be with their organic non-GMO thing, but if we have been genetically modifying crops since I don't know how many thousands of years before. It's just that we were doing it not on a cellular level. We were just combining different varieties of the same crop, and we were coming with better, more resistant varieties. So we are doing it. We were doing it for years. It's not something new. We just changed the tool. We have a better tool now to do it more efficiently. And as Nora rightly said, these are the crops that feed the world. And we don't have crop failures anymore in the modern day. And GMOs, like it or not, are to thank for this. Yeah. And my question to Nora, I mean, the stock looks great, would be, what are the other companies in the same sector? Who is CRISPR competing with at the moment?
So let me think for a moment.
I can tell you if that helps.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you,
There's
Steve.
the main ones are Invertire Corporation, Intelia, and Editas. So those are the three main companies. But as I said earlier, CRISPR AG Therapeutics, they're still the market leader.
I see.
I actually do have Editas in my new account challenge as well, and it's had some rough months, but it's just recently starting to move in. It changed direction. So yeah, it's definitely looking up. The sector is looking up.
Right. And so I just add my thoughts because when I'm looking at the world population today, we are standing at 7 billion people, right? It's just going to increase. It's not going to go down anymore,
Yep.
which means that, you only have so much land where you can use organic methods to farm and generate that much food for the mouths, right? For people. So eventually you will have to come up with ways to either not eat food and still be alive, or just be able to cultivate a lot more food. So definitely I think this has a long term. Now let me ask this question to Nora. Nora, let's say if one of our viewers who is watching, what would you recommend? Is this a good price point to get into the stock? What are you seeing right now from the technical chart standpoint?
Well, first I'd like to say I look at CRISPR as a long-term hold. I don't ever trade CRISPR or really swing trade CRISPR. When I buy it and hold it. I think it's a fantastic long-term stock pick. So anytime it's down near that 120 mark, I try to grab up some shares. That is my buy-in. Anywhere between 120 and 130, I try to add to the position with CRISPR.
Awesome.
Like I said before, it had already gone up to 210, so you could see it has that type of potential. So getting it in the 120s, I think has a lot of upside. You can almost 2x if you get in. And if it's under 120, it's definitely go load the boat, in my personal opinion.
Now, before we jump on to the next talk, just let's clarify. When we say long-term hold, what time you're looking at? You're looking at a year?
I would say at least a 5-year to 10-year time horizon. If we listen to Kathy Wood, she looks at many of her stock picks at least a 5-year time horizon. But I would say easy 5 to 10. I wouldn't be ready to sell it. I think it could really take off in the next 5 years, especially if we get a successful human trials and we're actually successfully treating major diseases like diabetes. I believe they're working on that, sickle cell anemia, pediatric blindness, things of that nature. I think the money-making opportunity would be super substantial if it could do those successfully.
So we have a question from one of the audience. Hello, working dad trader. CRISPR comes to be one of the future, but the financials are still not great.
Right. Well, like I said, it is a long-term hold. A lot of the money does go back into research and development, which is why people may shy away from the biotech stocks, because they see that, yeah, my money might be sitting there. It might be volatile. It might actually lose money. So looking at it as a long-term hold, you don't really have to watch the charts on a day-to-day basis with a stock pick like that.
All right. Awesome. So basically, folks, when we say long-term hold for CRISPR, it means at least you're looking at a 5-year. So with that, feel free to drop your comments about CRISPR. We'll answer as we go through it because we are on a clock. The next one,
there we go.
Steve, you want to jump on with your
yeah, sure.
topic?
Right. Well, the company that I would invest in is Tesla, and I like to practice what I preach, and that is my largest holding in my portfolio, which is Tesla. Second is CRISPR, but we're talking about Tesla. So why Tesla? Well, for me, it's not just about making money. It's also about being part of a company that's got a vision, a mission statement. So Tesla's obviously into sustainable energy. It's trying to improve the environment and everything that goes along with it. So that's why this company is important for me. It's a long-term investment. I like the CEO. Elon Musk. I know he does say a few crazy things every now and again, but maybe that's what geniuses do. You know, they have their funny sort of situations. But yeah, I mean, Elon, he's a visionary, he's a scientist, he's an engineer. So when he goes into meetings, well, maybe he's not Manos, you're shaking your head.
He doesn't have an engineering degree.
He doesn't have an engineering degree, but he does understand the mechanics and the science of the work he's doing. Yeah.
I understand. I understand some things about medicine. That doesn't make me a doctor.
No, fair enough. So, but the point is, what I'm saying is, at the end of the day, when he goes into meetings, okay, he's got a fair idea of what he's doing. He's not a bureaucrat. He's not one of these sort of like paper pushers that just goes through the motions and doesn't know what he's talking about. You know, he actually lives and breathes. You know, you've all heard about him sort of sleeping overnight at the factory, getting his hands dirty and actually getting involved in the company. So he knows his business. He knows what he's doing. A lot of people do say that Tesla is overvalued. But I think the people that say that tend to make the mistake of comparing it with other car companies. And those people that are involved with Tesla will say to you that Tesla is a tech company. So you should be looking at Tesla and comparing it to somebody like Apple rather than somebody like Ford or Toyota. The other thing I would say about them is, obviously, like I said, they have a vision. They've got a couple of factories that are up and running. So we've got one at Shanghai. We've got one in Fremont. Last year, they produced about 500,000 cars, 500,000 cars. This year, they're projected to do about 750. That's if you agree with what JP Morgan says. They've got 2 factories that hopefully should be up and running either by the end of the year or by next year. And we're talking about Berlin and we're talking about Texas. Now, they did have plans to do the cyber trucks and the semi trucks, but I think because of the constraints and problems with batteries, they're going to be concentrating on the Model Y, which is one of their popular cars. What else can I tell you about them? They've got the infrastructure in, so there's a lot of sort of charging points, and that's obviously one of the things that people complain about, not being able to charge the cars. So obviously people can charge them at home overnight, or they can go to a car park, either in a supermarket, or they can sort of charge them up at work if the boss lets them. 2% of cars in the USA are electric, okay? Wow. And the existing President Biden has said that by 2030, he wants 30 to 40% of cars to be sold and to be electric. Wow. So potentially there's a lot of growth, you know, and as I said, the company hasn't built all its factories. It's not producing at its maximum. So in my view, because there's potential growth and because they've still got a long way to go, I think the shares will reflect that as they develop and grow. So that's my take on Tesla.
All right. So let me ask that question. Since I follow Tesla very closely, let me ask you this question. Now, do you think, Steve, that Tesla is Tesla because of Elon Musk, or Tesla is Tesla as a company? What I mean to ask is, if you remove Elon Musk from the picture, do you think Tesla would have the same fan following, would have the same level of conviction to move forward and become the #1 company, probably even beating Apple?
Personally, no. I think Elon Musk is the driving force. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of talented people at Tesla, and it's one of the companies that most people would actually like to join if they could, you know, if they've got the skills. But I think he's got the business mind. He's got the focus. He's the one with the mission statement. I mean, you only have to have a look at when he makes comments on Twitter, you know, how things can change overnight, you know, whether they're crazy things or not crazy things. So I think the company would suffer, but maybe, just maybe, they would find themselves in the same way that Apple found themselves when Steve Jobs unfortunately died and Tim Cook took over. They might go through that transition period where they might have some problems. But because electric cars are the future, you know, I think there is a place for them.
Awesome. Nora, Manos, who wants to go next for the questions? Do you have any questions for Tesla?
I have a question, but it's not mainly Tesla. I just want to ask Steve. Obviously, electric cars are the future, but if Tesla is to be more successful than it is now, then electric cars need to be massively adopted by the general public. And at the moment, we see that in markets like the US, it's only 2% of the cars. In the UK, we have a target by 2030. I think it's wishful thinking because the infrastructure is not here, but we want by 2030 every new car sold to be an electric car. What do you think are the biggest challenges in terms of EV adoption that will obviously impact Tesla as well?
I think probably the biggest one is still price. I think people are waiting for the price of the vehicles to go down. Okay. In terms of getting more adoption, I think you'll get more adoption in Europe. I mean, because we used to be in the EEC, and when we didn't follow the guidelines, they used to fine us. So, we adhered to the guidelines a lot stricter, a lot more than we do possibly now. So if we miss those deadlines in terms of going over to electric, who's going to fine us? Nobody. But when we were in the EC, we would have been fined for not meeting those deadlines. So I think in Germany, in Europe, there'll probably be a quicker adoption. In America, Nora, you probably know more, but gas is so cheap out there. I don't know. You'll have to maybe make comment on that one.
I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing them put out something that is, what did he say, $25,000. I think that could open up a whole new market for people right now. Not everybody can afford to start financing a Tesla, but I think 25,000, I think that price point opens that Tesla option up to a lot more people. I think also once they start maybe doing the autonomous and showing that that's a successful thing, I think that could be a huge catalyst as well.
Sure. Yeah.
Awesome. So Steve, one question again, coming back on Tesla. Do you think this is the right price point? And let me share the screen, and then we'll take a few questions we have in the chat.
Okay.
You're looking at the stock price at this point of time. Like so far, year to date, Tesla has dropped about 1.73, which is not that bad actually.
Yeah.
It was in a 1 year high. We were like around, I would say, post split, we were at 880, and that's where a lot of hype was there. And right now we are trading around 722, so it's recovered. What is your suggestion to investors is this a good price point to get in, or you would want to wait and watch?
It's really difficult because there's a lot of short sellers. But personally, long term, I think it's a good price because I look at Tesla like a company that they're going to be like Amazon or Apple in a few years' time. So in my personal opinion, I think in 5-10 years' time, they would double or treble in value. So, even at that price, it possibly may go down a bit. I don't know. But even at that price, I would still be buying.
Awesome. Any other questions on Tesla before we take some audience questions from anyone?
I have a quick question. What is it that Elon Musk is planning to do on the roof of the Tesla factory? Was there not plans to make that some sort of entertainment complex of some sort, and also around the plant? Don't you think that he's trying to create like an ecosystem where it is not only like the factory, but you go there for relaxation, for family gatherings, corporate meetings, and things like that nature?
Yeah, I'm not sure which factory they're planning on doing, whether it's Berlin or one of the others, because I know that on most of his factories he wants to put solar panel roofs.
Right.
So he is very eco-friendly, despite the fact that he's obviously had lots of problems with environmentalists in Berlin. I mean, just last point that I'd like to make on Tesla is that the dream of Tesla would be for you to have solar panels on your roof, so you get the energy from the sun, it comes onto your roof, it then pays for all your electricity bills if you have enough sunlight. You then charge up your power wall, which you can then use for your car, so that you have free electricity for your car driving, so there's no fuel costs. And then in the evening, if you come home from work, you let your car out onto the street and you have a robo-taxi that's making you money overnight. So this is more of an investment. You're buying an investment tool rather than just a luxury or some kind of gadget.
Awesome. Okay, so I think we have a few questions I want to take from the audience. So Rasta Stocks asks is like,
Okay.
what is your opinion about, and it's not related to Tesla, it's what is your opinion about the QQQ, and let me just get that right, ETF and VTI ETF? Open to anyone in the group. What are your thoughts about the ETF, QQQ and VTI?
I don't know those ETFs because ETFs in Europe and in the UK have different ticker symbols, so we might have equivalents. I don't know who those ETFs are.
I believe
but-
QQQ is the Nasdaq ETF, if I'm correct, and VTI is
So-
the total market. VTI is a total market, right? Or S&P 500. Let me double check.
Okay, the QQQ tracks the Nasdaq 100 index, so I would assume the 100 biggest companies in the Nasdaq.
Yes.
I would say yes. I mean, I'm looking at how closely it tracks the actual index, how closely this ETF tracks the actual index, and it's really close, and that's what you want to see when you're choosing an ETF. It shows here that it has somewhat outperforms the S&P 500. Bear in mind, however, that we're talking about tech companies usually in the Nasdaq, so during a market downturn, probably they will get a bigger hit. So that's something to bear in mind, I would say. The VTI total market index, again, that's a safe bet as you could go, I think.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer. The next question comes from Working Dad, and this says the price of Tesla needs to come down on electric cars for a massive shift of the government subsidies. And I believe the Joe Biden's latest one is that you can get up to what, 12,500 as a subsidy on at least on the
Wow.
non-Tesla
Yeah.
cars.
I think correct me if I'm wrong. I only read that in passing that there will be a cap if the value of the car is above a certain threshold. You wouldn't be getting this subsidy. It would be only for cheaper cars. I don't know if that's that's true.
That's true. Yeah.
But I would totally agree with Working Dad Trader. Yes, I can't afford to pay an extra 10 grand just to drive an electric. I would still buy an internal combustion engine if I had to buy a car tomorrow. Also, another thing is charge points. They need to become more readily available. There are still people that don't have access to chargers, either at work or at home. And going out of your way to go to a charging station or a car park to sit around idling, doing nothing for 20, 30 minutes is not... it's not compatible with everyone's lifestyle. So charge points need to become available. At work, usually a charge point is installed when the boss gets a Tesla or an electric car, and they are using it, and nobody else can. So, speaking from personal experience, so
Now we
So,
know
yeah.
what Manu's boss, which car he owns. Okay.
so yeah, I totally agree with Working Dad Trader there.
And of course, Finance ABC says that nobody is absolutely indispensable, and I think that was the response to Elon Musk being the sole.
Thanks.
And then, all right, so and then Working Dad, the fast charging points are very expensive as well, and absolutely, and I think. I think this is my personal opinion. Watching as a retail investor, what happens generally is that there's a stock and it's doing very well, and it's like when the market is going up, the stock is going up, everybody becomes a genius, everybody is jumping on the stock and kind of hyping it up. And trust me, I think Tesla is my third biggest position, so I definitely want Tesla to succeed. So it's not that. Okay, now since we have done, any other questions for Tesla? If not, then I will Manos, why don't you show us your pick? What do you have?
Okay, so I took a different approach. So I took the approach of if I could only have one stock in my portfolio, and that would be it. What would that stock be? So I set out some criteria. It had to be a big company. It had to be well established. It doesn't need to be well known, but it has to be well established. So quite a few years in the market. It has to pay a dividend because it's the only stock I'll ever hold. And it has to have something that everybody needs, even if they don't know that they need it. So my next question was, is it going to be services or is it going to be something physical, like a physical product? Now, services do need physical products in order to be possible. So I went with something physical. Then my question was, is it going to be something like a computer? Is it going to be a car? Is it going to be a phone? Because these are things we need in our lives, in our modern lives anyway. But then I took it a step further and I said, okay, how do you make all those things? And you need to have materials to make all those things. And that's why I chose a mining company. I chose Rio Tinto, actually. And one of the reasons I chose Rio Tinto was actually for tax reasons as well. It's dual listed in it's listed in the UK and in Australia at the same time. So any dividends I would be receiving from Rio Tinto, they would not be taxed. If I'm investing in Rio Tinto through a stocks and shares ISA account, if it was a US company, I would have to pay 15% tax on any dividends received. And in terms of what they are mining, they're mining iron, which we need iron to make steel for ships, buildings, bridges, and all that. They mine aluminium, which we use it for cars and airplanes, heat exchangers. They mine copper. They mine borates that are used to create boron, which is used in fertilizers, and renewable energy and heat-resistant glass that is used on smartphones. They mine lithium, which we use in our batteries. They mine titanium dioxide, which is used in airplanes and airplane engines in particular, and also medical applications like hip replacement joints and things like that. Also in sports equipment, in paints. They also mine diamonds. I don't really care about diamonds, but apparently they are forever. And they also mine salt, but not your typical table salt. Salt is also used in industrial applications to create glass, paper, plastics, detergents, and things like that. So that's why I went with Rio Tinto as my only stock pick.
Okay.
And this is the chart of Rio Tinto. So let's say in the last 1 year, the stock has actually.
You have the Australian bit of Rio Tinto. If you can have the London Stock Exchange. I think it's
this one, right?
Yep.
Awesome. So in 1 year, we have had about 18%.
Yeah. Now, I have to give a huge shout out to Mark Schiavo, who has a free online class. It's called freefinanceclass.com. And he doesn't try to sell you anything. So go ahead and if you want to know how to do valuations of stocks, go ahead and follow his online courses. But he did a valuation for me without me even asking about Rio Tinto. And according to his DCF model, there is a very good upside for the future, like something like 60% over the next few years. And also they pay something like 10 to 11% dividends. So,
Manos, if you don't mind, if you want to drop the link on the chat, I'll also
of course.
show it. Okay. Now, for Manos, let me ask you, since it's a dividend-paying company, you're saying they're paying 11%. That's a pretty high dividend yield, don't you think so?
Sweet.
Yeah, it is. It is quite high as a dividend yield. Now, Google Finance says 8.72. Some other sites say something like 10%. Barron's.com quotes 11.08. So that fluctuates depending where you look that company. But they did. I have to admit they didn't have a consistent paying how can I say, track record. It is unstable. If you look at the report on Simply Wall Street, they mentioned that as part of their negatives. Let's say that they don't have a steady record. They're not like a dividend aristocrat that they never missed their dividend payments over the last 30 years.
Got it. So as investors, we should so people who are actually dividend investors, they should keep that in mind, that this stock, even though it's paying dividends, it's a very high yield on dividends, and this is not, it doesn't fall into your dividend aristocrats or other categories. So yeah, and folks, I have actually added the link which Manos shared, so feel free to go and check out over there. It will be great. I think if you have your own stocks, if they can do a DCF analysis, that would be great. Now, let me, any other questions for Rio Tinto, guys? Steve, Nora, what are your thoughts?
My comments on Rio Tinto, it's a good, solid company. It's got good track record. It's got good cash flow. It's got good profits. And the fact that it diversifies, that is good for me as well, because, you have different price changes in materials. So yeah, it's got a good plus signs. I suppose if there was going to be one negative, it might possibly be environmental concerns. But as an investor, it's just one of those things, you have to put up with it, because you have to mine, and you will have problems. But yeah, it's a good, solid company.
That's a good one for the watch list. I'm not familiar with this one, so I will have to read up on it. It looks solid. The dividend looks very nice. So yeah, I would definitely put that on my watch list. Nice and diversified as far as the different things that they mine, so they're not mining one particular thing. So I like that.
That's awesome. And to be honest, I think today was definitely something new we learned. I was not familiar with the stock either. It's only we came to know that this is a mining company. And interestingly, pretty much when I'll tell you my pick, everybody will I knew it, kind of a thing. But the part is that this is exactly why we are having this forum, and for our audience, whoever will watch after. So people who are live, thank you so much for joining. But for folks who are going to watch after the live has ended, this is something you just found out this stock exists. Any other questions, folks, on this one before we jump on to the last pick? All right, no. Okay, so my last pick, I think it's a pretty straightforward pick. As Manos said, I also had few criterias of deciding if I could only own one stock throughout my life, what would that be? And that would be the first stock I actually bought, and that was Apple. I have been buying Apple since 2008. That is one company that I have been investing since I started my investing journey. I think pretty much everybody on the call is familiar with what Apple does, but I'll kind of, still give a summary of what Apple is. So in 1970, Apple came out with their Apple II, right? That was the first, big revolution. Then 1980, they launched the Macintosh, which was, I don't know if you remember, but Macintosh had like a very designer backend. It was very different from your clunky PC and very expensive. Only probably the rich people could afford, and for average people like us, we would just see it on photographs and magazines, and we would be like, wow, I would love to own that. Then in 97, of course, we saw Steve Jobs leaving the company, and then coming back in 97 after the whole debacle and how Apple completely went down the drain. Then he launched the iPod. If you remember how you had a Sony Walkman, and then you had the iPod. So imagine that little iPod used to store 1,000 music, in there, 1,000 soundtrack. That was innovation back then. 2007, we get what we call the small brother of iPhone, I guess. The first iPhone. And the funny thing I wanted to share was that I was not an iPhone user until iPhone 7. So I never joined the iPhone wagon, but I hold Apple stocks way back when they actually launched the iPhone, right after that, 1 year later.
Wow.
So few things about Apple quick, because we had a Q2 earnings recently, and one of the biggest drivers, of course, has been iPhone, right? And every time people will say, well, iPhone sales are slowing down. Now what? But let me ask a question to the audience: is what is an alternative to a mobile phone in the next 5 years? Do you see an alternative? Because if you see it, then maybe it is something we should also look into it. But as for now, I don't see that we are replacing a phone with something else. That's my personal take. Again, not a financial advisor. From a recent reports, if you notice that Apple has a gross profit margin of 41%. That's a lot of gross margin for a company of 2 trillion plus. Then the dividend, it's also a dividend paying company. So it's not just a growth company, it's a dividend paying company. They started with 19 cents in 2012 and they have grown their dividends to 81 cents by 2020. So it's nowhere near your Johnson and Johnson, your Triple M. Those are dividend paying companies, but they don't grow like Apple. They are not Apple. Apple is still the biggest company by market cap. Then the last most exciting part is that Apple's revenue services. We saw 32.9% year over year. It's bringing almost $18 billion for Apple. That's a big service. Now, services services has become a major part for even Tesla has launched services now. So in the autonomous section, right, if you want a full self-driving, you have to get a subscription to use that feature for people who haven't bought the full package in the first go. Then the wearable like a watch, maybe they're coming up with glasses, I heard. I don't know. And the last catalyst, I think, for Apple is eventually getting into the car business, the electric car. I don't think they will become like a Tesla. Tesla will remain as number one. But just Apple being there in any market segment just puts a lot of pressure on the number one and number two players. And lastly, I just want to say is market share of Apple in India, which has about 1.4 billion people, is just less than 3%. So there is potential there. Now,
wow.
And let me see if I can pull up the Apple stock price, and I'll open it. Any question, folks? Ask questions about Apple. I know Steve has questions. Steve never agrees with me on Apple.
Do because I don't like Apple.
I know, that's the reason I chose Apple.
Yeah.
I think personally, this is just my own feeling. I just think Apple are a one-trick pony. I think apart from the iPhone, I don't think they've really sort of done very much. And it's really disappointing when you think that this company has got trillions and trillions of dollars. And then you look at Tesla and what Tesla have achieved in that short space of time. And they've got all that money. I just find that incredible. I mean, for me, yes, they've got all those services, but all they've been doing is buying up the competitors. They've just been gobbling up all these other companies, all these startups, and taking them over. And I don't see no innovation. And I'm really disappointed in Apple. I know that Tim Cook gets up at 5 o'clock in the morning and he puts a really hard shift. So he's a hard worker, and I respect him for that. But I don't know. There's more Android phones than there are iPhones, aren't there? I haven't got the figures.
Absolutely. But if you think about it, Android is an ecosystem. So you consider Apple as an ecosystem, you consider Android as an ecosystem.
Yeah.
In Apple ecosystem, Apple is the only company that operates. Apple never compares itself with an Android phone. Apple compares its phone with the previous Apple phone.
Right.
Now, if you think about Android, you have Samsung, pretty much the biggest leader. You have Google Pixel, you have LG. You have so many companies that you can't even remember. Yeah. And now Huawei eventually is going to come up with its own OS. So that's going to take away shares from Android, not from Apple. Of course, Apple will also lose, but Apple is an ecosystem. And that's what I think. If you are creating an ecosystem where you are the only player playing in that, that's monopoly right there.
Right. The only other thing is I read somewhere that people are they're not upgrading every year now. They're buying these expensive phones and they're hanging on to them because even if they have a few more features, they're not bothered. They can hang on another year or two. So I don't see where the growth is. I know you've got services. I appreciate that. But then there's people like Spotify that are taking Apple to court. and they're sort of saying, don't get the iTunes on Apple, because then you have to pay a service charge. Just cancel, come straight to us, we'll sort it out. There's all sorts of other things going on, but maybe that's what happens with large companies. You will have your legal battles, and you'll have sort of issues. But I don't know. Just for me, it's not one for me. But I can't argue with the facts. They're a massive company. They're making trillions of dollars. So I can't argue with that.
So now we have a question from Working that Apple is massive and will be around for years. My opinion is that Apple is expensive and is due for a pullback. That might be a time to buy, not now. Now, absolutely. I personally think if you are going to open a new position in Apple, right now Apple is trading at a pretty high price point. This is not the time you should wait for a pullback, because yes, it's going to eventually happen. The problem is, which I think, is in quarter 3 and quarter 4, Apple's sales are going to go up, especially in Q4, because they launched the phone in September, and generally there is a lot of back order, which generally gets filled up in Q4 and following Q1 of the next year. So pretty much just from the consensus, let me show you an interesting, let me pull up a finance while they have never ever in the last 4 or 5 quarters missed their earnings. And that is something which I really am amazed, because the last time they missed the earning was in 2018. Let me show you here. Where did it go? Here. If you look at this, can everyone see my screen?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. So if you see quarter 2 2020, they beat their earning per share. Same thing with quarter 3 2020. Same thing with quarter 4. Same thing with quarter 1. It's probably going to beat the Q2 as well. And even the forward-looking guidance for Apple, at least for now, is looking pretty solid, sitting at for Q3, especially when they are doing a 5G phone, which is coming out. So the iPhone 13 is going to be 5G. So a lot of people were actually waiting not to upgrade to 12 and waiting for the 13 to come out so they can upgrade into 5G. Now in US, this is my personal opinion, I don't really see a big difference. And maybe Nora, you tell me, do you see any 5G difference in Florida?
I haven't noticed it. No.
So that's my personal take. I haven't seen any major difference. We don't have any services, or I don't even get a 4G connection across many places. If I'm driving through Pennsylvania, there is no connection for a big chunk of the area. So what 5G we are talking about? But I think that is one of the reasons why I personally think that Apple is still going to dominate and be the market leader, at least for, who else is going to come into Apple ecosystem?
But that's the question. Yeah.
Well, go ahead, Steve.
No, if somebody comes up with some new revolutionary mobile phone, that they could kick them out of the water. I don't know. That's just my personal opinion.
I think people that are loyal to Apple and the Apple ecosystem are very loyal, and they're just very loyal. So once you get them involved in that ecosystem where they have the watch connecting to the iPhone, and I think moving forward, you said what might be a replacement for the cell phone might be the smart glasses. So if Apple comes up with something like that, okay, that might be a little bit of a game changer, right? So stay tuned, I guess. I think it's a solid pick. And it does have the dividend. Could they get blown out of the water? Probably not very easily, because you have all these loyal, Apple heads. But yeah, I think also instead of having their own car, I think they'll offer maybe the Apple edition of Tesla, or say the Toyota Apple edition, right, where you have these special features that cater to Apple within other car brands. I'm not sure if they'll actually have their own Apple car. If they do, that'd be amazing. But I think partnerships would be a better idea, I think, moving forward, to kind of get them moving into the electric vehicle space.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Manos, how about your thoughts on Apple?
My thoughts on Apple. It's Apple products are not for me, but the Apple stock is. I don't have a lot. I have like 2 shares, nothing major as a position. I wouldn't buy an Apple product. they don't appeal to me. When it comes to a laptop, I can buy the exact same specs much cheaper. When it comes to a PC, I can build my own PC the way I like it and blow the most expensive Apple computer out of the water, spec-wise, performance-wise, at half the price. So I don't get the appeal of their products. In terms of how well the company does, well, you don't have to buy the product to actually buy the stock. I'm not going to buy
Right.
a shipment of aluminium ore from Rio Tinto, but I am going to buy Rio Tinto shares. So now, when they come out with an EV, I would really like to see that with great interest, because when you come out with a car, you also need to have a support network behind it. And if the Apple service is anything to go by, you would go in with a flat tire and they'll tell you to buy a new car. So I really want to see how they pull that off. Now, my question to you, Kay, about Apple is, I read recently that Intel actually overtook AMD and Apple, went to TSMC, and booked all the 3 nanometer fabrication capacity for the next few years. And I wanted to ask you, how will that affect Apple? Because Apple were kind of betting on TSMC for their chips to be manufactured.
Yeah, that does put Apple into hot waters, I would say, because that also puts AMD into hot waters. And
Yes.
Intel actually has been ramping up. And I actually gave a lot of thought whether I want to go with something like a semiconductor company as my first stock, or should I go with a more business to consumer company? And that's why I chose Apple. But I do agree with you, Manos, on that one. With Intel actually ramping up, that does put Apple into a pretty hot water, especially when they were trying to build up their own chips so that they can put chips into their own products. That is definitely on card. And to support what Steve said, absolutely, I personally think that there is going to be competition. There is something always can come up. But here's the thing: just like the phase of the company, you had an innovator or the visionary, Steve Jobs. He died, and Tim Cook took over. Tim Cook is actually the guy who runs the company. He's the operation, I would say, genius. So you would need somebody like as the next stage for Tesla or some other company. Now, Amazon is actually, so if you think, I consider, Apple is further ahead in the journey of a company. You're looking at the founder is no longer there, and you have somebody else taken over and has been running the company fabulously for last 12 years, 11 years. Then you look at Amazon. Jeff Bezos just moved out. Andy Jassy just came in. So he is into the second stage. And I would say Tesla still is behind because the founder is still running the company. It will be very interesting to see how these 3 companies evolve over time.
Michael Kuda. Hi, Michael.
Hi, Michael.
Hey, how are you? Hey, thanks for joining. And so there are some questions. So Working Dad says Apple is massive, will be around, my opinion. So we touched upon that. 40 and Broke. I read the Steve Jobs biography and I found him to be spoiled entitled kid who was all about making money, but acted like he was some hippie spread wealth hypocrite. Okay. All right. Definitely, I haven't read his biography, actually. I just invested in stocks. I'm not a big reader. And I won't buy Apple out of principle. Well, definitely, I think it's every individual investor. I think what we should think is what you like. So even like I used to work for an investment management company, and there were customers who would not buy sin stocks. So sin stocks were considered alcohol, cigarette brands like Altria or Diageo would be sin stocks for them. So yes, so you should definitely focus on what you as an investor think is appropriate. And the last question is, I know where you're coming from, Steve, with your doubts. They do have a loyal customer. Absolutely. I think Apple customers are like your Tesla customers, are like your Bitcoin, enthusiast. And it's hard to change their mind.
Shout out to Dogecoin.
Shout out to Dogecoin. I was waiting for that, Nora.
Okay. That's That's my
All right.
shout out.
Okay.
Now, so we have 2 minutes. What else do you guys? Okay, now we have 2 minutes to wrap this up, and I know we had 4 stocks. So the first stock was CRISPR for folks who joined late. That was from Nora. The second stock was Tesla from Steve. The third stock was Rio Tinto from Manos, and fourth stock was Apple from my side. We briefly touched upon QQQ and VTI. Of course, those are market index funds. For I think absolute beginners, that is the way to go. But before we round it up, I want to get the closing thoughts from you guys. What do you guys think and recommend to investors who are watching this after the live stream has ended and didn't get a chance question? What would you give them an advice to begin investing? Nora, we'll start with you.
Well, for a beginner, I think you have to focus on your risk management when you're just getting into the stock market. That's very important. So, of course, you have to decide how much you can dedicate to stocks. If you have anything like debt, you definitely want to chip away at that first before you start jumping into the stock market. You want to understand, of course, the inherent risk. Of course, no one ever knows when these stock market corrections or God forbid a crash is going to happen. So you do always want to have that cash on the side, and then go ahead and pick the companies that you like. Which ones are you drawn to, right? So I would say, yeah, pick companies that you like, manage your risk, and always have that at least 15% on the side to, of course, buy the dip, which I love to do.
Awesome. Thank you, Nora. Steve, your thoughts?
Well, I think everything that Nora said is right. The only thing I would add is have a budget and do your research.
Awesome. Manos?
I have to say, if you're thinking of starting, start safe, as Nora said. Pay off your debt first, especially high interest debt. If it's overdraft or credit card, kill it immediately. That's the biggest return you'll see on your money. Then start safe. Start with ETFs, something like Total Market Index, World Index, S&P 500. And in the meantime, learn how to do your research into companies that you know and understand. Learn how to do research on well-known companies that you can find data for them quite easily. Companies like Apple, Tesla, obviously, Coca-Cola, companies that you can easily find data for. And then you can go into more in-depth unknown companies like 3D printing companies or fintech companies that are just starting up. Learn to do your own valuations, and don't listen to guys on the internet and
Like
take
us.
what we like us and take what we say at face value. We might have missed something. We might be biased. Form your own opinions, and that's the safest way to have good returns on the market.
That was very well put, Manos. I saw we do have last question from Financial Empowerment with Brother Ro. He asked, I bought 4 long calls this week, QQQ, SPY, and Microsoft. They expire in January 2023. What are your thoughts? Now, any of you guys, do you get into call options? Do you use call options? No.
Do you know, I don't even understand them. I need to watch Brother Ro's video again and figure it out.
Nora, how about you?
I do occasionally do options. When I do, I think the ones that are leap options or as you call long calls, which means they don't expire for several months into the future, that gives you more room for error. And of course, they can hit well before the expiry, which sometimes I just like to take profit while I can. You don't want to hold it too long because sometimes it will totally reverse and you will lose everything. You can lose everything with options, so I wouldn't recommend that for a beginner. But if you do get them, add a few months on. So if you want to say you want a December expiration, maybe make it February just to give yourself that extra room for error, right?
Awesome. Thank you. And I only have 2 advices for newbies. Number 1 is, guys, don't get into hype stocks and don't put all your money on, let's say, Virgin Galactic. It's going to the moon, is going to get you millionaire. I think what you should look at is trying to get on base. Don't try to hit a home run, because yes, you may get lucky once in a while, but most of the times you will lose, right? So if you invest in companies that you really believe, and I'm not into a lot of analysis paralysis. kind of an investor, I like to look at the company, how they did it in the last 5 years, look at their chart, how they are going, look at some of the analyst ranking, because let's say they have already done the work for us, so we can get some information from them. You can build your DCF evaluation model, but that will take time. You need to be a good investor. You need to be in the investing business for a long time, and don't try to hit a home run with one stock. Don't go YOLO on AMC. Don't go YOLO on Virgin Galactic. Don't go YOLO on Workhorse. Have quality stocks. But 40 and broke, too late, Doge to the moon. Yes, Doge to the moon, but I would still keep Bitcoin. Bitcoin will be my first love. So, I support Dogecoin.
Don't sell it. Don't sell your Bitcoin, guys. Hold.
Don't sell your Bitcoin.
Hold
it. Because if Bitcoin falls down, Dogecoin will not go up. It's inherent. It's a market leader.
Yeah.
That is true.
Well, that's it. That's all the time we had. Thank you so much, Steve, Nora, Manos. Guys,
Thank
if you
for
like,
having us.
if you liked it, let us know in the comment section. I would love to get this again set up. Nora, let us know how you liked it. If you want to join us for the next one, we definitely would love to have you again.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. This is awesome.
And guys, feel free to subscribe. Everybody's link is in the description to their channel. Go and show your support. And thank you so much for spending this last 1 hour with us. We really enjoyed it. And we really appreciate you spending this time. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.